So, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Multi-Stakeholder Forum from the TInnGO project. I'm Andree Woodcock, and as you can see, I'm working from home, where I have been since March. What we're going to do in the first session is provide a brief introduction to the day and to the TInnGO project. So first of all, welcome. And welcome, everybody. Oh, it's not forwarding, yeah. From the TInnGO team. Here we all are when we last met in Copenhagen. This is me, in case you can't see me, with short hair. And here is Elena. And Elena is doing the technical support behind the scenes. And you've probably been already in contact with her in terms of the conference organisation. You will be hearing from a lot of the project team during the course of the day. There will be either moderating sessions or there will be speakers in the panels that are going on throughout the day. In terms of the programme, we're starting off with this brief introduction while people register. Then at 9:15, we're moving on to the Gender Smart Mobility Roadmap. I'll be moderating this session, but it will, Hilda will be taking a lead in this. Then we have the first of our keynote presentations by Tanya Uton and another one by Karen Lucas at 12 o'clock. And I would really like you to support these, and thank you very much, Tanya and Karen, if you are online, for taking part in this. Between these two sessions, we're going to be looking at two of the chief areas of work for the TInnGO project. First of all, looking at a paradigm shift in employment in the transport business ecosystem. So that is the wider transport system. And then looking at the same thing in the educational and research and innovation sectors. Then we're going to have a short comfort break. Afraid it's not time for lunch, as it's a really busy agenda. Karen will be starting off after lunch, and then we have two really interesting presentations, one led by Lena on intersectional approaches to understanding mobility, and the other by Kathleen and Sebastian from TUL, looking at stakeholder reflections on gender and diversity. Hilda is leading the session at just after 2 o'clock, looking at the way ahead, and I will be wrapping this up hopefully just after 3 o'clock. And all that is saying goodbye and mopping up any of the questions that we might have. So thank you for this incredibly early start from the UK, and let's get on with the day. So first of all, what's TInnGO about and why is it relevant now? As you've already seen, we have participants from across Europe, from Spain over in the west, over to Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania in the east, from the north of Europe to the south of Europe. We have representatives from small, medium companies, from industry, from local authorities and from higher education institutes. And what we're all working on is to achieve a long-term and sustainable change in transport, in particular in the smart mobility sector. So we're looking ahead. We're looking towards what transport can be in the future. And the smart mobility sector is what's happening right now. We believe that transport's really too important just to leave to technologists and engineers who are developing the new transport systems, but without understanding gender and diversity issues, they're just going to be providing more vehicles and more of the same. And really, this isn't smart mobility unless you take a wider socio-technical approach. So smart mobility, mobility as a service, whatever you want to call it, has shifted the emphasis away from movement and vehicles to accessibility. And this is a key issue that's been developing within the last 10, 20 years. Transport's no longer being developed for its own sake, but it's seen as an enabler to break down barriers to inclusivity in society. However, we still have a domination of technology-led approaches, which I'm sure you've seen in the recent calls for EU projects. It's all about engineering, it's all about research and innovation. And if we're not careful, these will continue to lack the wider vision of inclusion. Where are the people in these projects? Where's their voice? If they're not heard, then the technology will not actually be designed to suit the people. And we're going to replicate the previous shortcomings we've had. And there's going to be still a lack of gender and diversity within the solutions. Now's the time to stop that. We have developed in the past, in previous projects, gender mainstreaming tools, but they've not been widely adopted despite the proven benefits. So how can we use these? How can we extend these to look at gender and diversity and develop win-win situations for the companies and for the users of these systems? So the Smart City Agendas is another initiative that's going hand in hand with smart mobility. And this offers us a unique chance to create more equitable societies, to do something different and offer a high quality of life for all people. And smart mobility can be part of this. And we've seen this in the Sustainable Mobility Plans, where inclusion, engagement are fundamental processes to this. So our project wants to seize the moment and capitalise on these advances. But also, if we look at COVID, which unfortunately we do have to, and I for one have been in virtual isolation since March, how can we use this as an opportunity to actually start thinking about cities, rethinking about cities and our mobility, and also looking maybe at training opportunities to get more women into transport and create better user-centred services. So what's TInnGO up to? We're trying to develop new approaches and methods that can be used by everyone in targeted smart mobility areas such as mobility, education, employment and dissemination. We want to create impact in terms of new knowledge and business practices and lead to impact at local, national and international levels. And we're doing this by popping our head over the parapet, and we've developed the TInnGO Observatory. A lot of you will be familiar with hub and spoke models, and this is basically a hub and spoke model. So at the core of the TInnGO project is an observatory. This acts as a data repository. It has hub pages, resources, an open innovation platform, and links to other resources. And using these, we can look at what is happening around Europe in 10 national hubs, from Romania to the Baltic states, Sweden, Denmark, the UK, Spain, Italy, and Greece. All of these act as little hubs where members can start observing what's going on in their country with respect to transport. What are the key issues that are emerging? The hubs are also supposed to be working on citizen science and engagement to get people interested and engaged in shaping future transport solutions. And they want to become beacons of engagement, activity and know-how for the wider transport sector. And they're also involved in data collection so that we can merge data in a similar way across countries across Europe. Unfortunately, we have been hit drastically by COVID in the second half of the project, and the citizen science and engagement is difficult. We hope to reach hard-to-reach groups and women who had a natural footfall around the city. A lot of these people don't go out anymore, they're afraid. A lot of the NGOs that we are trying to work with have closed because of funding restrictions. So we're finding new ways of working and doing this online. Each of the hubs started off with their own specializations. These have changed over time and adapted, partly because of the COVID situation, but each hub had a little focus which emphasised particular areas that they were interested in. So for the UK, this could have been rural women, the LGBTQI communities as well, minority groups. We're working with this, and because these have been selected by the hubs, the work that they're doing is naturally going to feed into the community and show some benefits. In terms of our little observatories, what we're doing is using the observatory website and actually doing small studies or reporting on what is actually happening out there. We're acting as an observatory, collecting news, commenting on news. Each of the hubs has their own profiles, and for the UK hub, we've been looking at the e-scooter trials across the UK that are happening at the moment. One is happening in Coventry. We've held a webinar on gender and rurality, and we're now looking at gender and diversity in images on digital platforms. And what we're doing is just presenting snapshots and news items to say, look, transport has to fit into this wider framework. The hubs have also started to work with the citizens and looking at co-designing different smart mobility products. Here we can see the results of two of the initial workshops which were held with the Romanian and the Italian hub. What we're using here is design as a means of further understanding the lives of people, the role of transport within those lives. And Paul, in the next session, will be talking more about this. So, in summary, TInnGO's overall approach allows us to look at many aspects of gender and diversity, inequality in transport, in different countries and from different perspectives. We hope to provide guidelines, data and methods for change at a pan-European, local and sectoral level. And what we want to do is engage more people in conversations about cities and co-create designs to raise awareness of smart mobility and emphasise that their voice matters. So the expectations and takeaways, what we want to do is share the work of the last 18 months with key researchers and TInnGO partners, introduce the approaches we've been developing, explore the role of transport in contributing to social exclusion, and discuss the next steps in creating a paradigm shift in transport. So that is all from me. So thank you very much for listening. I'd now like to pass on to Anka, please. Hello, Anka. Oh,
Andree, Anka is in, but we cannot hear her.
yeah, I know Yeah, what can I do?
Can we proceed until the situation will become more feasible? Let's start session 1, and Anka will come back later because I cannot hear her.
Okay. Okay, can you? Right, can you hear me, everybody?
Yes, Andree.
Oh, good, thank you. I'm not sure what happened with Anka just then. Can you see my first slide, Gender Smart Mobility Roadmap?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Great, okay, thank you. Right, okay. Well, thank you for putting up with that slight technical hiccup there. I'd like to move on to the Gender Smart Mobility Roadmap. We have 4 panelists in this, Hilda, Floridea, Felipe, and Paul, who will be talking about different areas of the project with us. So by means of trying to provide an overarching narrative of this, what we want to do is look at what happens if we do nothing. As I said in the previous talk, there's a high risk that the problems of the past will transfer into the future, and mobility solutions will continue to fail on 5 essential criteria of affordability, effectiveness, attractiveness, sustainability, and inclusivity. So what we want to do is look at how we can evidence and influence paradigm shifts so that we can have smart transport that works for all, and what new tools can we develop to give us new insights. In TInnGO, what we want to do is raise awareness of the problems. We need to look at new ways of thinking, promote new ways of knowing and doing, so that we can improve practice and policy. We're also going to be providing guidance on increasing gender and diversity through the development of practical methods and tools and training material. One of the things that we are looking at the moment within the UK Hub, which is an emerging problem, is the lack of gender and diversity in images such as those in Shutterstock, which we all have to use at the moment. So this is one of the few images we could find of a woman from an ethnic background on a bicycle. And I'm sure Paul will have more to say on this. So who controls the media? Who controls what images are sent out and how we actually restricted in what we can do and what we can represent? And so we are presenting different versions of reality on this. The scope of the panel is regarding introducing the Gender Smart Mobility Roadmap, looking at how we can create a paradigm shift in thinking through greater interdisciplinarity, new methods and analysis. And what we're going to be focusing on is gender and diversity action plans, digital analysis, mainstream and gender data and digital mobility, media analysis and design. So thank you very much. I now pass over to Hilda. Hilda, can you show us? Yes, okay. Hilda, can you talk to us, please?
Yes.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Hilda.
I'm Hilda Christensen. I hope that you can see the screen and perhaps also me. Kan jeg ikke komme op, så jeg kan se mig selv? Anyway, I've been asked here, or my task here is to say, to add to what have already been said about the Gender Smart Mobility Roadmap, primarily going out from the TInnGO project. I'm Hilda Christensen. I'm from University of Copenhagen, and I'm the conceptual coordinator of the TInnGO project, meaning taking care of developing appropriate concepts and also translating them into practice. And I'm doing so with my team here at University of Copenhagen and also in close cooperation with the team from VTI in Sweden and of course with all the TInnGO partners. What I'm going to do here and within this 10 minutes is to present glimpse from the TInnGO roadmap. What's the problem and paradoxes in smart mobility discourses, which has been the impulse for the TInnGO project to present or to go a little bit into key concepts and to present a couple of examples, GADAP plans and digital analysis, and then back to politics and strategies, which was also one part of the TInnGO project to create more proximity to the political level. Okay, problem and paradoxes. I think, and my claim will be here to keep you alive and kicking here from the morning, that smart mobility discourses as they are unfolding now in terms of green mobility, autonomous cars and all that are producing insiders and outsiders. And here you see a bunch of the insiders, it's the experts, it's the politicians, it's the audiences, it's the users. And this is picked up from the Danish media debates over the past months. And I assume that the picture is similar throughout Europe. And on the other hand, we have women as outsiders. Even women have been very visible in the climate actions and also when it comes to sustainability and transport. It seems as if the climate conversations, as said by some of the Danish activists, are becoming dull, and they are constantly focusing on technological issues and making this and not expanding the conversations and the agendas into the issues that we are dealing with in the TInnGO project. I think this is a challenge, and I will return back to this challenge at the end of this presentation. Then we have more well-known issues such as gender and transport, the segregation of users in transport, where we know that men are the drivers and women are the users of public transit. And even though the picture is developing and changing a bit in regions and within classes, I think this is a persisting pattern throughout. Also, when it comes to the labor market, we see a persisting gender segregation of the transport labor market due to both traditions and also gendered assumptions. And also here we see some new opportunities opening up, but I think that the picture at an overall level remains the same and very segregated. And last but not least, we have a persisting male dominance in politics. We see here a mapping of transport ministers in Europe since 1945. In this mapping, we have 245 ministers and only 23 women ministers, and very few of them have put any changes, have been able to successful in terms of game change. And I think that politics still matters in terms of priorities and in terms of resource allocation, and also politics is setting the tune for the whole debate and what is possible within the framework. So this was a bit more disparate, a bit more negative, or a bit more pessimistic outset for the TInnGO project. Next, TInnGO core concepts, gender smart mobility for all and game change. We are looking, as we have heard from Andree, on various topics, on developing new methods, and also creating new policy models. Andree already presented gender smart mobility as this all-encompassing idea, combining smart mobility with justice and equality discourses. I will not go into that, and we are also working across several modalities, walking, smart cars, biking, etc. And we have developed these indicators, as you saw, and they are, of course, inspired by other researchers, and we have molded them into our own agenda. I will now proceed to two examples of the TInnGO Gender Smart Analysis of Practice, the GADAP, the Gender and Diversity Action Plans, and the TInnGO Digital Analysis. First, the TInnGO GADAP plans as a model and a game changer. One could discuss that. We have developed and we departed from the well-known gender action plans to developing gender and diversity action plans. And we did that in 10 local hubs, as you have heard, which have acted as practical laboratories with local stakeholders, and they have been working across several modalities and issues that were pressing in the particular context. Here we have Paris as an example. Paris is, as you know, one of the big metropolitan areas in Europe, and a model for a new model for a more inclusive mobility patterns here would also be a model for other places in Europe and in the world. And what they did in Paris was to set up, to create a combination of private and public stakeholders to find a focus of their work as gender and diversity in shared mobility, to set up an aim of the plan to service, to provide services to marginalized users, women, elderly, lower income, and also at the same time to provide mobility solutions for all Paris citizens, inclusive design, inclusive communication, inclusive fare systems, and inclusive infrastructures. They also, in this process, located the lack of data and strategies and comprehensive analysis, and they put up a plans, short-term, mid-term, and long-term, for how to proceed with the work. It's worth to note that it was difficult to set up a long-term plan due to the participation of private stakeholders, because they don't have these long-term perspectives. Just an example, a good example, I think, of how one can create a platform for change, for future change. And here's a more generic model of the gender and diversity action plans, and you can look more into that when the report, which is being finalized now, will be public here at the end of the year. Second, I would like to look at or provide information about the TInnGO digital analysis, which was focused on smart cars and passengers on one hand, and transport and employment on the other hand. Two important columns in the TInnGO project. Why did we set out to do a digital analysis? It was because we wanted to update transport analytical methods, which we find very traditional and very non-mobilizing, and also enable us to handle big numbers of data without sending out thousands of survey schemes and the like. We also wanted to develop a simple, explorative, and critical tool which could be used by mid-range users, as most of us are. And we ended up with a focus on visual representations, which is also very seldom in transport analysis, and use of images and mixed methods. And of course, we also made a critical assessment of the usefulness of these models. I cannot dive into all the details. I can only show for you here the tools that we provided or we developed for the TInnGO digital analysis. We combined existing tools, the Google Trends, with the Google Image Scraper and the tagging data service Clarify. And then we used we transposed these things into a visualizing Giphy network tool. And I would argue that the first 3 steps can be conducted by everyone, while the fourth requires a bit more sophistication here in technical issues. And you can read more in the report, which has been submitted to the European Union recently and which will become public very soon. So the queries, they followed keywords in national contexts. And here we looked again at smart transport and passenger and transport and employment. And we asked 5 partners to locate specific terms used in national languages, which was possible in this technical setup. And the 5 partners located 500 images each per query, and which made up a total of 2,500 per theme, for example, on smart transport and passengers. The assessments were that technology was very dominant. Even when looking for passengers, human beings in the images, technology came up and was very dominant. Cars and details, technical details. And there were lots of misreadings of persons and things where snow was taken for a person, etc., etc. So in that sense, here we have some details of our readings. We don't have time to go into them, but the message from the TInnGO project could here be to challenge what the driverless cars tech experts are telling us, that machine learning is reliable. For example, if you show a picture of a dog for a machine 2,000 times, the machine will be able to recognize the dog. And this is used in these new technologies. But this is not true when we look at human beings. And this is a very, very tricky thing in the technology of autonomous cars, because they are depending on such tagging systems similar to what we have done here. And we know from these tagging systems that they are producing both gender inequalities and also racism. They read Black people, for example, as animals, etc., etc. So what is needed here is bridge building between technology and diversity. And also that, I mean, we could cooperate with these technical guys who argue that radar, sonar, LIDAR, camera, GPS, and all that will create the possibility of avoiding all the problems. I think it could make a big, leap forward if people like us work together with some of these people. So, but what is happening, and now we are back to the politics here, what is happening in Europe, and not in politics exactly, but in the research politics, you can say, in the new and upcoming Horizon Europe draft work program, where the cluster here related to what we are doing here, climate, energy, and mobility, is totally focused on technologies, innovation, and connected and autonomous cars and batteries, while non-motorized mobilities, etc., has no space. And it's even worse when we look at gender, where gender is included in 11 calls out of 200, while intersectional keywords are integrated in 28 calls, but they come as a very lower part in these calls. So, I mean, it doesn't really have, there is no profound attention to any of these keywords. So I think that we need a lot of attention and pressure and ask politicians about what they will do in future. And I'm sure that we'll return back to this discussion in the final panel this afternoon. And therefore, there's also what we find out, what we come up with in the TInnGO project is badly needed both for very local, regional, but also European aims and targets. Yeah, thanks. That's all for me now. And here are some references. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hilda, for that. Can you please look at some of the questions in the chat box? Can you pass your screen on now to Floridea, please?
Yeah, I needed that somebody give me the permission for sharing the screen, Andrea.
Right.
I think that Hilda needs to. Okay.
Ej, du behøver ikke at se. Det er fandme da en art. Nej, kan de høre?
Okay. I think that it should be.
Nej, men det gør vi.
I cannot.
Ikke lide det. Ikke lide det. Ja.
I think that somebody needs to give me the permission for sharing the screen.
Yeah, I can't see a way of doing this.
I think that the person who is sharing now the agenda should just not share the screen. And in this way, I can share my screen.
Has that helped?
I don't know who is the person who is sharing now the screen.
Hilda, can you stop sharing your screen, please? Ah, there you are.
Yeah, but okay. Okay, I think that now I should be able.
Yeah, that's where, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thanks a lot for TInnGO project for inviting me for presenting this short presentation. I'm about mainstreaming gender data, mobility partners, and inclusive digital solutions. I'm Floridea Di Ciommo, co-director of cambiaMO. Changing Mobility is a research organization, and we are working research and in mobility mainly, and gender and equity. What I will share with you this morning is some results from more than 7-8 years of work started within the women issues in transportation and gender transport research board committees, and what we started to see and in the travel behavior committees as well. What we have seen is that normally we say that there is not so many data for gender, but this is something that is true. And it's very important that the projects like TInnGO are carried out, but as well that the gender data are not well analyzed or mainstreaming from the data that we already have. And this is quite something that is common everywhere in the world, from European states, cities, metropolitan areas, to South American metropolitan areas, to United States, and to Asian. So what happened? Actually, when there is like a kind of a stereotype, I have seen a question before for the panelists, and where women are caregivers rather than commuters. But when we have women who are at the same time caregivers, doing some caregivers mobility and some commuter mobility, is not captured. So this is something that we need to keep in mind. For example, this is the case in this photo. And then when we go to analyze the mobility survey, what we did for a metropolitan area of Barcelona, we can see that there is a kind of a difference in the satisfaction by gender. And in our theoretical approach, not to be satisfied is an indicator of not to have the basic needs covered. And here it's very interesting to see that we have the housewife that are the caregivers by definition group of population, that where women are the majority and are not satisfied from the what the public transport and the private transport is offered to them. Are offered to them, and when we go to this is the same for women who are employed. This means that both travel patterns like commuters and caregivers for women are quite complex when they need to deal with the public, with the transports. And then we observe that as well when we go among the retired people, women are more satisfied than men. And this is just because women are already, when they are retired, they have a lot of much more time because they are liberated from the caregivers aspects and activities. And this is a problem as well, because this is a cause of unwanted loneliness. And where we are in transport, methodologically talking, we need to identify these unmet travel needs, and we use the methodology that is a little bit different from what we have seen, that is very based on satisfaction. We think that people are more in a place to say what they need. So we don't want to have but we don't know to fall in the patronaging them. We want to ask to them what are where they are, if they are satisfied or not, if they feel like a social poor or not. And then that the social poverty and transport poverty are two different things, and we really need to focus on this difference, because we need different solutions if somebody needs to eat or if somebody needs to move. And then for the mobility solution, we should design some different kind of mobility solution for different transport poverty contexts, for vulnerable to exclusion group of people, and so on. And then here we are with this European project, Inclusive Digital Mobility Solutions, where the gender is crossing all the pilots and to check exactly if we are serve this part of population that is quite the majority of population everywhere, that still was not considered in a right way by the transport planners. So of course, the gender and cultural background strongly affect mobility. Female mobility is quite different from the other mobilities, because of the patterns and behaviors are different for caring and so on. We see that even in the northern countries, where there is a more shared care, where the caregivers in-house is shared, for the mobility still women are in charge of mobility of kids, of parents, and so on. What we would like to do with the INDIMO project is to try to provide a universal digital manual for digital interface and to take into account the social vulnerable to exclusion people needs. Of course, women are not the only, are not vulnerable groups, but we would like to pay particular attention to their mobility, because until now, the transport system was not so able to do that. We have 5 pilots in Galilee, in Madrid, Berlin, Bologna, Anvers, and yeah, that's all. And we have 2 specific pilots related to the more on the with the mobility of women. One is the Galilee pilot that is deployed by the Technion and the Kayan. This is a feminist organization. This is important because it's for empowering Arab women, taking account their specific cultural and gender restraints. And to expand their mobility, not only just for the employment, but as well for an accessibility to academic part and to lifestyle opportunities. And this is already an application that exists, but we need to improve this for to be used by Arab women. It was already designed for them, so this is a good starting point. And then we have the Berlin pilot that is deployed by the developers door to door. And the objective of this pilot is to take in account women migrants and low-income caregivers women. Is placed in the district of Marzahn-Hellersdorf, that is quite peripheral one, and where there is the highest percentage of families per house in Berlin. What about the digitalization? Could be an opportunity as well for working for women. Here there is a huge challenge because in transport and technology, we observe that women are few, even especially in technology. So STEMs, we are doing a quite important effort for attracting women. But of course, when the context of STEM is very male oriented, it's quite difficult to attract women. And as well, digitalization, more women for what? We see that there is a risk because there is a lot of works that will be developed in data administration and caring aspects, especially when we are going to the automating and connecting transport. But this is what we would like to go out from these kind of stereotypes. We would like to be a little bit more empowered for transport digitalized decision job position, because otherwise we lose once again an opportunity to be there for deciding the right transport and solution that we need. And this is just for conclusion. For concluding this brief presentation, I would like to focus on what we obtained during the last COP25 in Madrid. That was a little bit a disaster from the climate change point of view achievement, but at least we had this the adoption of the 5-year gender action plan. And we are working on within the gender advocacy and stakeholders on a gender aspect. And the 5 key recommendations coming from this plan are to could be really adapt to all gender policies in transport and technology. And this is to incorporate women into the planning process, designing complete street for walking, facilitating cycling, intermediate modes, and green weather resistant public transport. Develop whole communities by ensuring land use and transport that are well integrated between them. Provide some inclusive transport service that should meet the diverse needs beyond business travel. I mean, commuters, commuting travel is just 21% of the story almost everywhere in northern country, and not more than 30% in southern countries. So so just take the care of the other mobilities, and enabling progress for funding, education, and outreach for inclusive, sustainable mobility for women. And I think that that's all. And thanks, and happy to answer to your question.
Thank you, Floridea. Can you stop sharing your screen,
Yes.
please? Thank you. If anyone has any questions, please put them on chat. Thank you. Felipe, can you share your screen, please?
Yes, I stopped it. Okay.
Isn't Paul's screen now, Andree?
You're next, Felipe. There you go.
Is it? Hello?
Yeah, hello, we can hear you. You've got a few minutes. We're running a little bit behind schedule.
Is the screen sharing now?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay, I'll try to speed it up. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here this early. And thanks for all the presentations so far. I'm going to be very quick, not only due to time, but as we discussed previously, this is an ongoing analysis. TInnGO has been participating in the partnership with VOI regarding the Coventry trials for the e-scooters, which is less than a month and a half it's been going. And we had other trials happening all around the UK in different cities. So basically the plan with the gender and diversity plan is to assist in how to make the e-scooter provision more inclusive and how to potentialize its use as a new micromobility solution. I'm going to walk through just a basic method that we're using to approach media analysis, basically, due to COVID restrictions. As everyone knows, we're not doing field work is not possible at the moment. So in doing some analysis on the media representation, semiotic analysis, and gender scripts, which is basically understanding how the e-scooters compare to their cultural significance in terms of gender, how they reach certain populations, if they last in the trials, how they relate to the basic environment, the idea that material objects, they carry practices and identity. So what kind of identities are connected to the e-scooter and what identities are being represented. We are looking into that. So yeah, it's a specific part of the method. So I'm bumping into a few problems, which is one, the trial is fairly recent. It's been postponed in a lot of cities. Like Cambridge was supposed to start in August, but they only started, I think, by the end of last month or beginning of this one. So data in the UK context is fairly new. We are basically trying to gather this data through media. We are mostly being informed by North American and European context due to the research being more advanced in there. And so far, by basically analyzed 20 media articles, coming up with a few preliminary results that we'll discuss. The UK trials, so far, they with the media representation, they are quite resonant with the results we have at the moment for the European data. And basically, the idea is to get how to compare the UK trials with the established e-scooter provision in other countries, and how to can our research inform the possibilities not only for the trials at the moment, but also at the end of the trial, how they can reach a broader population and make it more accessible. Well, the situation is that basically with micromobility solutions, including e-bikes, which I'll discuss how they relate to the e-scooter at the moment, we are the identity of the e-scooters is connected to young male users, usually between 20 and 18 and 35 years old. We're not having a lot of representation of gender, and the difficulty of accessing data as well. So we don't have data for ethnicity and race, for instance. So we've been methodologically been analyzing gender and age. So here are some facts and figures from studies in Austria and Germany, which I believe Germany has had the e-scooter trials and since 2015-16. And both places, including all the results in the USA, also points to that demographic of users. Here's some other facts. This study was from I think Portland, and the service provider itself presented the data, which also only presented gender, age, and ride length. So basically, 22% only of the users were female. That included the ones who didn't. A lot of people didn't answer the survey as well after getting the data entries. And I just put this graph of distribution of ride lengths because it's a problem that we are identifying in some papers with the e-scooters, that they are disconsidering gender. As you say, figure 4. However, the distribution of ride lengths e-meter per gender proves that gender hardly has any influence on usage patterns, which is why we excluded this variable from further considerations. This is something that I noticed in 2 studies, so it's quite problematic, and we're trying to see how that, to understand why is that, and understand how different usages represent different gender patterns. Here are some clips from image clips. I don't know if I can zoom them with, yeah, some images from the database that I've been using, which shows a little bit of our results, which are kind of mixed. And semiotically, you can see that the only 2 representations of women here as hitchhike riders or passive riders with the e-scooters. And one of the results presented lately, especially since the last 2 weeks of the trials, the discourse in media has been fairly, they've been taking the tone of policing as the solution to the problem that some cities are facing. And they have this idea of, this is an article from The Guardian, the e-scooter, road menace or savior of the commute. So we're seeing a lot of dichotomies in it.
Felipe, can you conclude now, please?
Yes, yes. So basically, what we've been identifying is that this dichotomy between savior of the commuting or menace, the policing state, and the lack of infrastructure, which is identified in all the papers. Mostly all the papers that we have so far show that the lack of gender, gendered use, and the lack of representation gender with the e-scooters represent a bigger gap in micromobility solutions and infrastructure, because the same users, the cyclists, being also male and young, they are most of the users of active modes of transportation. And in the papers, women have been saying that the lack of infrastructure, the lack of security, and the perceived representation of only men using such active modes of transportation are deterrents to a more inclusive, gendered and diverse users to actually access and use micromobility solutions. And here are some references. Okay, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Paul, can you show your screen, please? I'm sorry we're running a little bit late.
Good morning. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, that's fine, Paul.
Yes.
Fantastic. Right. Okay. So my name is Paul Magee. I'm the senior designer at Coventry University and design lead on TInnGO. And I'm going to very, very briefly talk through our approach to design in the context of TInnGO and how we use this as a tool for challenging and changing perceptions. I should explain that this particular perspective, that I particularly employ in my practice, is based on this convergence of different elements in the design process. So the designer has always been this known value. Research has become much more of a fellow in the work of design, but also there's a third element, which is about co-creation. So I try to focus my work on this convergent space, which is between those three, as you can see in this Venn diagram. And we're starting to see this to be more apparent in a wider range of design-led disciplines. And hopefully that will become more apparent as we go further through the presentation. So what is the role of design? So in some cases, we could say this is as a provocation. We want to get a response. It's very difficult to ask for feedback on an idea without having something to visualize. So we use various tools to show concepts of what a solution might be. But we have to do this by asking lots and lots of questions. So we're asking, who are we designing for? Why would they want to use it? When and where? These standard questions. And in this particular instance, we're asking, what is an e-trike? So we could say, is it something which is based on familiar mobility, familiar devices, so standard bike wheels, a bike frame, something which is illuminated, something which has common elements that are not unusual and are really easy to adapt to personal transport. We have key elements. We're always asking ourselves about the affordability of our designs. Will the solution be effective? Are the methods of manufacture sustainable? Are the materials sustainable? Is the solution attractive? Which is a very, very complex question. And very importantly, are our solutions inclusive in every way they possibly can, which might be down to communication of the way that something is used, or the way that the functionality affords most people's usage. In this case, we've designed a trike for the TInnGO project, and we achieve these key elements by looking at key aspects which I tend to term experience highlights. And I will very, very briefly whiz through these because we have quite a lot to get through. So, for example, we may look at common elements. These are visually different, but also visually familiar. This is a standard bike wheel. These are actually the shape of the seat is designed based on office seats. There are really familiar materials and finishes, but they're presented in a slightly different way. And again, it's trying to get a response to see if this will actually suit this market and suit the purpose. I like to think about the language used in this particular image. So I'm asking about protection. Protection can be the roof, for example. This may be protection from UV rays from the sun. The copper rails may be protective because they give the impression of structure and of strength. The middle highlight is a side bumper bar. Now that may give protection from falling off or falling out. It may be protection from somebody reaching in, and equally it may be protection from other forms of other modes of transport. And then sensation. So we're talking about an e-trike, we're talking about biking, we're talking about moving around under our own power. So what kind of sensations do we want? Do we want to feel a sensation of speed or movement? Is it meant to be dynamic and agile? And then there are areas of interactions. Now, interaction is very, very important because this can mean a number of different things. In this case, the middle highlight is looking at a steering control, which you may notice this has no pedals. So the steering control is providing controls over the powered rear wheels. And we don't know if this is actually the way to do it, the way to actually solve the problem, but we're provoking the answers from viewers and from people who will co-create the ultimate solution. But how do we get to this? We don't just pluck these things out of the air. Our work is based on research and on a solid ground of research. And research-informed design is based on multiple levels of context. And I really like this particular layout of these icons because I think it explains it in really simple terms. So if we go from left to right, we've got a mouth, so it's somebody speaking, and there's a speech bubble there where they are saying something. And then for me, the one in the middle is very, very important. So it's an ear, so we are hearing, but we're not just hearing, we're actively listening. And there is a difference between those two things. And then we move on to cloud ideas. We're generating something, we're collecting those things together, and we're coming up with a solution with the light bulb at the end. And I think this really sums up how we work with users right at the core of what we do, because their lived experience is so valuable. Now, there is a standard process that we have always used, which looks at definitions and ideation, which is creating ideas, prototyping, and testing them. But that seems very linear. Now, that may be the case in some product development, but the way that we are approaching it and the way that we tend to in the work at Coventry is to make this iterative. So we have this big group, this big holistic group that looks at different needs. We have these different teams that can explore how they can be solved, and we can go around to the steps and we will go and create ideas, we'll prototype them and test them. We don't stop there, we do it again, and we'll keep going around until the whole collective decides that actually we've reached that saturation point, that we've got to an area where the solution is suitable for most people. Now, I mentioned on one of the slides moments ago about research informed design being dynamic, iterative, in-depth, and intersectional. And this intersectionality is something we have to explain very, very broadly as being a really important tool. And I'll speak from a designer's point of view, because this helps us to categorize different kinds of needs and understand the differences. What we don't really want to do is find ourselves creating solutions that create systems of disadvantage. I realize I have to speed up really quickly, Andree, I'm trying.
You do indeed.
Okay, I will really speed up. So when we talk about trying not to disadvantage people with our designs, we're trying to find holistic solutions that are good for a wide range of people. We had a lot of experience with caregivers who were nurturing their children, and there are a lot of different experiences about how that is perceived in the public. So we've designed one solution, one idea, one provocation, which is called the Nurture Pod, which is to create a space where someone may choose to go and nurture for their child. Equally, they don't have to, it is a choice, it is an option, and we've made this a much more playful experience. Now, I will go very quickly on from this one, because this diagram is fantastically detailed, and it is about the whole kind of inequity, and we should probably spend more time going over this in more detail at another opportunity. And if I quickly move on, I will just go for the final sense of the final tool that we might use in terms of life journey, so the lived experience journey. Now, we use a combination of tools. We use personas. Now, a persona is a really simple tool for defining an individual's narrative, and they can be quite emotional narratives, and they include key aspects. So I've listed there: diversity, inclusivity, social situation, and that particular journey. This can be variable for any kind of product, any kind of user group, and it allows us as a design team to put ourselves into the shoes of somebody else's experience. But we don't just sit with that because it's very static. We apply that to an active journey. So we create a journey narrative, and it is literally from point A to point B, and there can be many, many of those steps. And we're trying to look at ways of designing solutions that help people during that journey in ways that are actually responding to their needs that we've been told about, that we've experienced by seeing actual experiences, and thinking about it in terms of a much bigger picture. And to really, really quickly wrap up, so I put in bold here some words that I think are really, really important from the way that we currently work. Empathy is incredibly valuable. Visibility of the process is becoming much better, has always been hidden away in the past. Solutions that we are creating when they're empathic are composed of their experience. The solutions are fulfilling and accessible because we're not designing them in isolation, we're designing them with people. And I think, just to finish that off, the paradigm shift here is that this collective future is composed of many, many journeys with a lot more responsibility than we may have seen before, and user-defined innovations. And I think we can term that as empathic systemic design. There you go. You're muted, Andree.
Thank you. Well noticed. At least you know now, don't you? Right, I'd like to thank all the panelists and very quickly move on to Anka. Can panelists please have a quick look in the chat box and look at any comments they might have? Thank you. Anka, we can't hear you.
Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Anka, thank you so much. Sorry about the technical problems.
No, that's fine. That's an example of how challenging is it to organize remote meetings. Okay, great. You can also see me. Good morning. My name is Anka Pashka. I work for INEA, which is the Innovation and Network Executive Agency, and here in Brussels. I'm the project officer in charge of TInnGO, and like you can see, I'm also working from home. Currently in the European Commission, we will not have any meetings with the outside stakeholders for the next 3 months, for example. So we will have to cope with Zooming and other platforms of remote meeting. So this morning I was asked to give a brief introduction to your work. I will start by saying that I am very happy and proud that the European Commission has founded this project, TInnGO, back in 2018. We have started, we in the European Commission, we have started from the observation that you have all made earlier this morning, which is the fact that women do count for half of the society in Europe, and but only 20 to 25% maximum would be observed in the smart mobility or in the number of workers in the sector of transport. Well, starting from this observation, the task we have given the consortium of TInnGO was to assess the specific transport requirements of women, as well as the employment opportunities in the future transport system, but also to analyze the intersectional aspects such as gender, social level, education, ethnic origin, family composition, and the influence these aspects have on specific mobility needs in order to increase the participation of women in mobility and in transport-related jobs. We have also had the need to perform a gender impact assessment of new technologies and business or operating models like the smart mobility in order to assess their acceptance and non-discriminatory performance. The consortium was also asked to assess the opinions and attitudes on new technologies, the access to public transport in the context of social and spatial inequalities, the specific feature needed for public transport, including the diminishing the risk of violence, and to map the future needs for skills and opportunities for professional careers of women in the transport of in the sector of transport. Dealing with these issues is the main objective of the project. The forum we are having today is part of the journey. We have asked within the Commission TInnGO to deal with these aspects, but at the same time they are not alone in their journey. Within the European Commission, we have also initiated some other initiatives which are part of the scene. And for example, TInnGO is integrated in a variety of these initiatives, and I would like to mention the platform Women in Transport that you most probably know. All the information about that is found on the website of the European Commission. INEA, agency of the European Commission, has set a group which is called Women in INEA, and which is part of this platform. The aim is to maximize the potential of women working in the transport sector and to make full use of it by exchange of good practices and simply giving the women a platform to express themselves in. One of the recent examples could be the fact that the Commissioner Violeta Bulc met a few workers in the sector of transport, as well as employers, academics, and policymakers. The input gathered from these meetings is aimed to attract more women in the sector and to use the technology as an opportunity to encourage more to take part of these new opportunities. I'm sure that during the day, I will stop here. I'm sure that during the day there will be a lot of interesting initiatives that will come up, and also good practices to empower the participation of women in smart mobility. I thank you for your attention, and I wish you a good day.
Thank you, Anka.